listening to
Split the Defense.
LEAFS Post-Game Edition.
Split the Defense.
Is presented by the Forest Electrical Contractors. Professional and efficient service since 2004. Serving the Kingston and surrounding areas. Alongside co-host Craig Pearce and producer Ted Evans, here's your host, Jordan Webster.
What up, and welcome to Split the Defense LEAFS Post-Game Edition. LEAFS lose 6-4 to the Vancouver Canucks tonight. CP's not even upset about that. His second favorite team. He's like, I win either way. But the rest of us here, which means me, are not happy about the game tonight. I'm Webby, along with CP and producer Ted. Just before we get into this, take a second, drop a like on this episode, subscribe to our YouTube page, and rate us 5 stars on all other podcasting platforms you may be listening from. Not a great start from the Leafs tonight. The Canucks, I would say, absolutely dominated in the first period. I thought tonight was supposed to mean something, and it really didn't look like it did for the rest of the team. The expectations of this game that we had going down 3, like, that's not good enough right away. It's great that they came back. It's awesome. It's good that the team has it in them, but man, like, I need more. Like, this is one of the best teams in the league. You need to prove that you don't just shit the bed against crappy teams, that you also can put it up against the best teams in the league. And this just wasn't good enough for me. At 3-2, the organist was playing She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain. I fully had belief that She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain and the Leafs would be tying it up. It ends up tying it up. Happy to Leafs. They stuck with the game at that point. Bird even kicked one in. Like, it was close. It wasn't a complete blowout. But, man,
it felt kind of
after
like
everything we've seen from the Leafs in the last week, it would have been very nice to see a win tonight. Even if it was a 1-goal squeaker, guts it out, balls it out, they just didn't do it. They didn't, they couldn't, they wouldn't, they shouldn't, they can't. And it's fucking frustrating to watch this team over and over again lose. So that is 5 of their last 6 that they've lost. Vancouver came out hot, man. Like, Luke Fox tweets, what an ozone shift by the Vancouver Canucks 62 seconds before they score a goal. And that was Höglander's first goal. He had 2 tonight, along with Garland having 2 tonight. Miller scored a goal. Pettersson scored a goal. That was the 6th for the Nucks. 2 goals from Nylander, scoring his 200th, along with McCabe chipping in, as well as Marner getting a 4-4 tying goal, which I thought was huge, but ended up being fucking nothing. Leafs get a late power play, even on 6-on-3 at 26 seconds, but they couldn't make anything of it. It's not enough. Game ends 6-4 Canucks. What are your initial reactions there, CP, to this game?
I mean, I guess it's just like the same old story with, like, they played horrible just to start the game. I mean, it just seems like it's been the routine recently. It would have been nice if they could have squeaked one out, but it's still kind of right off the hop. It was the same old thing. Like, I was pretty impressed with Marner tonight. Like, we've been pretty hard on him. I guess I've been hard on him specifically, but he had maybe his best game of the season. His points wise, maybe not, but like, he was the best player on the Leafs, like, by far. I don't know, though. It's just, I feel like this is an expected loss. I felt like this was definitely going to be a loss. We're just able to beat Calgary. This is a way better team than Calgary. So, yeah, it was kind of what I expected, to be honest. Would have been surprised if they had won. And I don't know, the days of the chance for Sheldon Keefe to be fired are probably getting louder and louder and louder because, I mean, just kind of like a mess, I feel like. I don't know what to expect from this team. Like, they don't have an identity at all. I don't know. It was not a good game for sure, but probably what we would have expected from them. So, and I mean, Martin Jones was just horrible too. So that didn't help. I think he had a 700 save percentage at one point, and I think it got a little bit better, but rough. I mean, Yeah. And what, are we going to put Sammy in to make it better? Like, he has to play tomorrow. So,
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it a horrible effort from the Leafs. It looked bad. The score sheet looked bad. There were good chances both ways to start the game. The biggest thing for me though is that the Leafs let in 3 in the first period, and it felt like at the end of the first period, it was the end of the third period. The Leafs checked out of the game. They were not responding, and that is a problem I find with the Leafs, specifically watching other teams and watching hockey. You see teams try to respond at the end of the third period, and I didn't feel that, man. Like, you can tell me whatever you want, expected goals and chances, and at the end of these periods, when you have a chance to close out the period, it didn't feel like they were doing it the right way. It felt like they were.
have they?
Man, they have. They have. You can't lie to me right now and tell me that they've never played a good game. They have. They've closed out
No,
periods.
but close out a period, that's like one of their Achilles heels. Like, they've never done that. It's as much as playing 40 minutes a game. They
have. They've played good periods. They've closed out periods before. They're not an absolute dog, right? They don't do it all the time, but they've done it. And tonight, I just felt like if they could have closed out the first couple of periods better, they had chances, man. Like, do you want to talk about conversion and they didn't convert on their chances? You can say that. But at the end of the day, they lost because of the end of their periods. If they had better end of their periods and didn't seem to just say, well, the intermission's coming, they probably would have had a better shot going into the third than they did. And I know that they tied it up, and I know Willie had 2 goals. Like, we had goals from McCabe. Marner was in on the shorthanded tying goal, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the period, they played sloppy. They played chancy. They took a card from the Monopoly board and said, community chance. They said, I'm just going to try. Let me see what I can get. And they gave up too much, and they did not, they didn't capitalize on any of that. Had they capitalized on 1 or 2 of those opportunities at the end of those periods, I'd be singing a different song right now because they would have won. But I'm not. And I'm saying that you can't do that and not capitalize. They weren't good enough, man. I felt through the first period tonight, man, that they were disconnected. I felt like they were a team who'd just met. It's the first night of beer league. We hung out in the parking lot before. I met him. We had a pint. I know his name, and we're going to play a game. And that is how I felt in the first period for Leafs, and it just wasn't good enough. It just was not good enough.
Yeah, the closeout period didn't really matter to me because, like, they didn't start on time. Like, the story is they didn't start on time. They didn't have any opportunities at the beginning of the game. They were outshot 9-3, and the game's 3-0. Like, they're not getting anything from their goalie. And then basically they battle back, and then 2 stupid penalties by, like, Gio. I guess it's sort of a dive, but the Domi cross-check to the back, and I don't know. It's like, yeah, like, you could point out a lot of things that's wrong with this team right now. It's like, I feel like a lot of guys that Brad Shaleving would accept a trade on at this moment, and like it's not exactly like, I don't know, because it's funny because Bertuzzi is the guy that I'm kind of like alluding to, right? Like, makes a lot of money. He could definitely be improved on. I think a lot of teams would still want him. So, like, I don't know. There's a switch up has to happen here soon. Like, I don't care if it's the coach being fired or you're trading out a significant piece, but like, it's just like a lackluster performance off the bat. Like you said, I agree. Like, a disconnected team. Like, I don't know what they are. Like, I don't know if anyone can look at each other and say, like, yes, I know what the game plan is tonight. So. Like, yeah, and then that's a coaching issue. And like, when the lines again, like mid game tonight, are just being shuffled up again. Like, I haven't seen, but Matthews must have had like a million different line mates tonight. So, yeah, I don't know. It seems like it's a coaching issue, but I think it's also bigger than that. So we're just not as good as teams like as Colorado and Vancouver. We're not at like the Leafs aren't good enough to beat those teams on a regular basis. I think that's where we're at. They can beat all the other teams. It seems like they went on a great road trip, and they've kind of
beat
had
San
an
Jose
easier
twice.
schedule, right? So but like when it comes to the big teams and that have star players, and it's just and the team tonight in Vancouver isn't like star-studded way more than we are. Like I would say that Pettersson and JT Miller are like on par star-wise than Matthews and Marner. It's not like McKinnon out there who is like pretty clearly a better player. Like this is just a team that has an identity. They play hard. They play as a team together. There's way more hustle out there. They win almost every battle in every corner. Zadorov might not be putting numbers up on the board, but he sure makes an impact on that team. And no one even like gives him a second look, because who would? So yeah, that team, they're more of a unit. The Leafs are not a unit. They're just a bunch of players.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this game tonight, this game on Hockey Night in Canada, 2 Canadian teams. It's a primetime start at 7 o'clock. It's supposed to mean something. This is a litmus test for the Leafs. This is you're playing the tops in the league. And I just can't believe that the Leafs would come out and not take it so seriously. And is it that they didn't take it seriously, or is that the personnel that they have on hand are not good enough to control a game the way the Vancouver Canucks controlled the Leafs for moments in this game tonight? Because I saw moments over and over again where the Canucks dominated, and then you see the Leafs get out. Oh, and the Leafs are control. The Canucks are dominating again. Okay, so now they're back in the zone. The Leafs get it back out, and they're control. No, they're not controlling shit. They didn't control shit tonight, man. Like they did nothing against this Canucks team, and this was a test, right? Like they've done it for years. Like it's been 6 or 7 years. The Leafs play like shit against lower end teams. And like, Ted, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but Stanley Cup contenders can play against teams that are shit. They're not good, and they do not good. They do not well against those teams. But when it comes to these good teams that are measuring stick games, they show up and they play good hockey against those teams.
Yeah.
Like I understand not getting up for a game because you don't think the team is up to your par. The Vancouver Canucks are 100% the team to beat this year in the NHL. They're the team.
Well, no
Like,
question.
I mean, at the beginning of the year, we had 4 teams. We had Vegas, we had Colorado, we had the Canucks, we had other teams. They're the team to beat. It is still January, whatever it is today. The Canucks are the team to beat. And we come out tonight and we don't look like we can hang with those guys. There's just a, fuck, I hate to say it, the way Steve Dangle says these tiers and these levels, it's like they fucking know they're not good enough, man. And that's the worst part. They come out and they just aren't good enough, and they just have the attitude of like, I can't read their heads. I'm not in their heads, but I can read body language pretty good. And their attitude is, we can try, and we'll try. You know what? I'll try.
They didn't really look like they were trying. Like
There
William
is no
Nylander
fucking
showed
try,
up tonight.
man.
Like there was no try in his game when he started. He's lucky he got 2 goals because he looked like shit. And both of the goals that he got are basically just Demko screwing up. He wants both those back. So yeah,
There's do and do not. There's no fucking try, right? This is not the fucking try hard league. This is the get it done league. As Josh Donaldson of the Toronto Blue Jays said when they went on their 2015 run, you need to get it done. You can't just try hard. And this team tries hard, but they have a disconnect between them, man. There's something that's missing.
Hard, so.
There's just I've never once since Austin Matthews has been on this team been able to say, yeah, that's a 3-man line. That is all 3 people should be on that line 100% of the time. And like, I may be going off topic here, but like, that's a fucking problem. That is, You cannot be running with a team and never once be like, those are 3 guys you can't take apart. Like the Colorado Avalanche, they had a 3-man line. They had to take it apart because one man blew out his knee. Understandably so.
Yeah.
This team does not have that. Like, never once in the Austin Matthews era have I ever been like, you know what, I love his two line mates and you cannot split them up. Matthews and Marner, great. Matthews and Nylander, at times, great. But they just,
I think 2 years in a row we've had one line mate that works well with Matthews, and it was Hyman 1 year, and then it was Bunting. It's never been just Marner or just Nylander. There's never been like a complete unit always clicking, you know. This year the left wing's just weak. You know, like Bertuzzi was supposed to be the guy that shows up and does it, and he's just not. Like that guy's 26 games or something without a goal. He's just awful. If you put like how much are we paying per point with Bertuzzi, it's just off the charts. It might be way up there. Like it's higher. It's passing the Johnny Gaudreau situation where he's actually might be looking okay, but I don't know. Bertuzzi, I think, needs to get out of here. He's just not fitting in, and I don't know if he doesn't like playing here. Like, go back to Boston. I wouldn't trade him back to Boston because that'd be a nightmare. But trade him somewhere else, and then you can go back to Boston from there. But
buddy, I think we have completely different opinions on that because I feel like Bertuzzi may not be the regular season player, the 82 guy that we're looking for over and over and doing it. But I feel like he might be a guy that shows it up in these mucky games. Bertuzzi didn't play a bad game tonight. You know, he didn't score. He did not play a bad game tonight. He was all over it. He was in on the puck. He was in front of the net. He was causing shit. He was doing his job. He was not the problem tonight. And we talk about, well, he's not working, so we got to get rid of him. For somebody who's going to work in the regular season, well, we've had guys who work in the regular season for 7 years now, and we need somebody who works in the playoffs. Bertuzzi, his style and his resume says that it will work in the playoffs. So I think that we keep a guy like that for the playoffs. The problem is, CP, we have to make the playoffs to fucking play in the playoffs. We can't just say, oh, yeah, we're going to keep him for the playoffs. But you got to make them first because at this point, Detroit has passed us in the standings, and we did not nullify that tonight. We have one game in hand on Detroit. If they played tonight, we have 2 games in hand still. 2 games in hand, and we are losing to the Detroit Red Wings. There is no playoff spot for the Toronto Maple Leafs right now. It is not looking good, man. Like, you want to keep a guy like that for the playoffs, but you got to get there first.
Exactly. Like, you can't just go 82 games of a guy looking horrible and just say, oh, he's a playoff player. He's a playoff player. Like, you need a home. You can't be just on the 4th line for the 82 games, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, yeah, you're good enough to be on the 1st line. Like, that's not how it works. And sure, he was a playoff player in Boston, but like that, he's not a guy who has years and years of playoff experience. Like, he's got 10 points in 7 games, and that's the reason why we brought him here. But if he doesn't have a spot, then he doesn't have a spot. And that playoff success is the reason why you might get something actually decent from him. Like, if he didn't have that, then no one would even trade for him ever, because like he's just hasn't done anything. And like you said, he does muck it up to an extent, like not to the extent that I thought I was getting from him. Like, you know, he is the 3rd guy in to when he's Yarncroke's in a battle with a guy, but like, be the 1st guy in. Like, he's never that guy. Like, I don't know. There's something missing there, and I would love him to turn it around, but it's not working. Like, so like, I don't know. I do like see what you're saying though. Like, if it was working like somewhat, and he could find a home on the 3rd or 2nd line, then yeah, maybe you take a gamble on that. But it's just like, it's been so bad. But I actually want to go back to John Henderson's comment here. He said no toughness on the back end. And basically that was the last 2 goals, is that like no one is tying sticks up in front. And like, again, I know like Gio's not playing next game. There's no way. Like, I know he thinks about doing the right thing, but like he's just watching pucks go right in front of him. I don't know if he just doesn't have the quickness to get a stick or a skate on it. But actually, anytime he puts a skate on it, it goes in our own net. So, like, I don't know. He's not tying guys up front. He's not getting to the puck quick enough. He's making mistakes. Like, he's definitely not in. It better be Lagesson that's in this lineup next and not Timmins, because that'll even make me madder than having Gio in. But, yeah, he's got to come out. And a guy like Zadorov that we didn't go and get, like, that's exactly what he does. And so like now we're looking for a guy that does exactly what we couldn't get for a 3rd round pick, and
for a 3rd and a 5th. Yeah,
Right. Like we didn't have a third, so obviously that wouldn't have worked, but there had to have been something else. Like it must have been that Calgary just wasn't making a deal because I don't see how Brad Treliving wouldn't see that we need that type of a player. Like, man.
No, absolutely. Mitch Marner scored 2 tonight, or he has 2 points tonight. Do we like? Is this a tight checking game? Is what I'd like to know, because we talk about Mitch Marner can't get going in a tight checking game. Can we give him a little credit that this was a tight checking game and he still showed up, he still produced, and as much as we give him shit, tonight was a night that was not Mitch Marner's fault. It's nice to place blame, but like we had Nylander score, we had Marner score. It's really hard to place blame on the stars unless you're talking about John Tavares right now.
Yeah, like I said off the top, like maybe Marner's best game of the season. Like it might not show on the score sheet, but he definitely, and I have that written here. Like I forget how I put it, but yeah, Marner's best game in a tough game. No question. I was so impressed with him. He seemed to be able to find room when things got a little bit rougher. Like it's just been the problem that we haven't been able to see that enough. So. Like, I love Mitch Marner on a game that he can find space. I think he's one of the most creative players, but just the history has shown us that he's not able to do that. But definitely tonight was a huge turnaround. I'm glad that Willie did something because, like, he was, like I said, just hardly skating for the first part. And I think it was the first or second goal. Like, he was the guy in front not playing tough enough. So, like, John Tavares, like, something's got to happen there. Like, I don't know if he's I don't know, man. He's snake bitten a lot, I'll tell you that, but he's also taking a lot of shots with no one in front. Like his iconic move is skating in and making one little move on the defender and just throwing a puck on net when no one's there for the rebound, no one's there for the screen. Like he's missing line mates, I think, to make him better, but he's fading fast in my eyes. That's the problem. Like we're missing that transition of having a star player in Tavares and having these younger players. Like where that cross is, like that's going away. Yeah,
that decline is coming now, and it's year 6 of 7. It's understandably so, but
it was supposed to happen by now.
You're really starting to see the decline of John Tavares. I mean, he bobbled a puck tonight. There was a 2-on-1 on the first power play of the night, and it was like, this team, they just don't have it. The stars, the way that it's built, the structure they have, they need to reconsider. They need to restructure. It's just not what they thought it was before. They're just not those guys, right? Benoit and McCabe tonight, they both laid big hits, and then within 10 seconds, immediately the second goal goes in the net. I've harped on this pair for time and time again. They're both great. They both do things that we love on this show. Between the three of us, we love big hits. We love seeing that defensive style played. But when both of you guys are taking yourself out of the play to take the man instead of playing the puck, now there's no defenders on the forwards that are coming in or sagging back behind good defensemen, which this Vancouver team has in Quinn Hughes and Philip Bronick and so on and so on. But, the two of those guys, I feel like they need to be on different lines. You've loved this pair, CP. You've vouched for this pair over and over again. But
yeah,
I literally watched Benoit goes this way, and then McCabe goes this way. And you know what happens when that happens? There's nothing in the middle here, for fuck's sake. So they come down and they fucking score. Like, you can't have two guys playing the same game on the same line. I've seen it time and time again. I feel like this is a great example of why this pairing does not work. Prove me wrong.
I mean, I feel like you're nitpicking at that point, because what you're explaining to me is that the centerman isn't doing his job. Like if both the defenders have taken a man, then the centerman's supposed to be the guy in front. And so, like, that's just my answer to that personally. I think they did a good job. Like, McCabe played absolutely amazing tonight to me.
Both defenders had opportunity to play the puck. They could have played the puck. They both of them could have stuck their stick out in that position and affected the puck in its direction. Instead, they decided to pinch off and take the man. And that is where I say you can't have those two guys playing next to each other.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. If you say I disagree. I mean, I just feel like there's been the highlight of this decor. So like to pick at them as a, I don't know. I feel like you're trying to get it because I've brought it up so many times, but I feel like there's the Brody to me has been awful, and Giordano's been awful. I feel like they are the ones that need to really go on this, or maybe not go. Like Gio's got to go. Brody can maybe find a home on the third pair, maybe. But I mean, there just needs to be an upgrade, and so like at this point, I'm not. Benoit and McCabe are in this lineup. I just feel like you need to add definitely one, probably two, and guys that can really play strong in front. And like I can kind of see that you're maybe asking for like more of a, a puck mover, a two-way defenseman that plays with those guys. But like that's not helping with our issue that we're having. Like the problem was tonight was tough sticks in front and taking out guys, taking out bodies. And so like we need a stronger guy. Like yes, a guy that can move the puck, but like definitely a guy
that's more
that's
willing to play the puck rather than the body. Those guys are both body playing guys. And when I watched that happen tonight, like, man, I know I didn't play professionally. I've watched enough of this fucking hockey that I know when you open up the center of the ice and the puck sweeps out to the center of the ice and a good player picks it up, it's a fucking goal. And it was. And that's what happened. You can't let that happen. Somebody has to play the puck.
It's just not only their fault. Yes.
No, it's
and the
not
centerman
only
has to be
their
in
fault.
front. Yeah. So like I don't know, like just because they've taken a guy, then it doesn't mean
Both
that they're the reason. Yeah, like everyone, it's man on man defense. That's what they're playing. And so like they've both taken a guy. If there's a guy in front, someone needs to have him. And when you have a weak ass player like Willie in front, then like that's your problem. Is that like a guy like that is too weak on his stick when he forgets how to play in his own end. So like I understand what you're saying, that like yes, they've both gotten, but what I'm saying is that's gonna happen regardless. Like with all types of players, and just like the problem is that the forwards aren't covering properly, and we've constantly been having mixed assignments. And so like I see that like yes, you don't want it to be that there's no one in front. It's just maybe it's not just them that needs to be in front, like that's my kind of point. But I do understand yours too. Like if in a perfect world Benoit's probably on a third pair. Yeah, like in a perfect world Benoit's probably on a third pair. And then it's hard to complain about him at all, because then the mistakes you make, you're like, well, look at what he brings, So like possibly if you could get two right shot defensemen, and then you're filling up the first and second, that's a lot to ask at right this second. I would just rather be fine with the second pair at this point, and we're still searching to fix the other two. That's for sure.
Absolutely. It's crazy how many left shot defensemen are in this league that are good. And then every team in the NHL struggles to find three good right defensemen, except for like 3 or 4 teams who have 6 of them.
Yeah,
there's like 3 or 4 teams in the NHL who have 6 really good right-hand defensemen. They got 3 in the AHL, they got 3 in the NHL, and it's like, how the fuck? The rest of the league is just fucking sparse for it. Like it is the position that does not get filled in the league, and the Leafs, that is exactly what they're lacking, is those right-hand defenseman. And I'm not just talking a third pairing right-hand defenseman, because you can find those. There are those guys around the league. We need a top 2 and a top 4 right-hand defenseman, and those guys do not grow on trees.
No. Like if you have a kid that's getting into hockey right now, tell them that left-handed sticks just don't exist. Just only buy right-handed sticks, give it to your kid. Like they'll go way farther in life if they want to be a hockey player. Because they just don't exist.
And teach them defense.
Yeah, and teach them defense. Like Philip Roenick was a guy that was available last year, and everybody was questioning how he got so much for Detroit trading him. And it's because he shoots right, he can play a top power play, and he can also play on a shutdown line. So like Webby said, those guys don't grow on trees. So you can really see how, and he's been the perfect line mate for Quinn Hughes. Yeah. So I mean, you can see now why they've given up so much for him. Yeah, like that. Underrated when he was in Detroit, just overshadowed by Moritz Seider. But like now that he's kind of found a home, then I mean, he's widely regarded now in the NHL. Yeah, he's great. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it looks so good. So what else you got there, CP?
So Domi was. What do you think about Domi on the top line? I mean, we kind of brought this up last night, and we saw it tonight. After the only problem was that like he got a penalty and one that I was really pissed at, and then they go and try him on the top line. I felt like I don't know. That's just like a weird coaching thing that Sheldon Keefe does. That like where he doesn't keep guys accountable as much as he likes to say it. Like it just doesn't happen. But like I don't know. I thought it was weird timing to try it, but like currently they put Pontus Holmberg in the center position. Like I don't know. It's just like such a hole on the left side. Like I don't know if this team now needs a centerman, a left winger, a defenseman, or a goalie, but kind of they need all of the above. And so lots of work here. The more and more we see them play against big players, it's just like, oh yeah, they don't have this, like that's missing, and so like I think if you shipped out someone like Bertuzzi, who's that left winger that was supposed to be the savior, like Jake Gensel is what everyone was talking about tonight. And, obviously Kyle Dubas is the GM in Pittsburgh. Does he love some of his guys? We know he loves his guys, right? Kyle Dubas loves
his guys.
Right. So, like, Jake Gensel, is that, like, he makes $6 million this year, but you're probably going to have to pay him, like, $9 million next year. What do you think about that movement? Does that help the team more than, like, a centerman or a defenseman?
You get Jake Gensel on this team, the whole outlook of this team is completely changed. The thing is, I do not think that A, Kyle Dubas would trade with this team. B, that I think the assets that are available for the Toronto Maple Leafs to make Kyle Dubas change his mind to want to trade with this team. I just don't think it's going to happen. History does exist. It is a human managed sport. These guys are human. They are going to have human emotions. And like, he is not going to want to trade a great player to the Toronto Maple Leafs for anything less than absolutely an overpayment. And I just don't think the Leafs have an overpayment for that right now. That's just not going to happen. To go back onto the Max Domi thing, I think the reason that he got back onto the top line is because in the last 10, 15 games, Max Domi may not be the most effective player, but he is 100% the hardest working player. He is trying, man. If you cannot look back at Max Domi and say that guy floats ever. He tries. He puts in 100% effort. He is a Leaf. Okay? His dad was a Leaf. He was born a Leaf. He is a Leaf. So I can see why Sheldon Keefe says, yeah, let me get some of those vibes on the first line, on the top line. I don't think he should stay there. I don't think that's his spot. But I can understand it because Max Domi absolutely has been our best forward in, 5 of the last 10 games when Austin Matthews wasn't taking it over.
Right. I kind of feel like it might be his spot. Like if we can't get a left winger and like we have to pick and choose here, you go and get a centerman. And like instead of putting him on your left wing third line, like I think he's kind of perfect for the Matthews and Martin. Like he plays with grit. You're not asking him to fight all the time, but you're asking him to grab someone in a scrum. He is, like you said, the hardest working guy on the ice a lot of the time, and he can make plays like Marner. And so it's not just a one-dimensional team. So it's what we wanted in Bertuzzi, kind of, where like he's half a puck digger and half a playmaker. But Bertuzzi might fit that role, but you're just like, you definitely need a centerman at that point. Like if it's the whole thing, like if you get a centerman, then he can be the top left winger. If you get a left winger, then he has to be the third line center. So I think it depends what you can get. But for the Jake Gensel thing, though, like I was kind of like during intermission, I was just thinking about this way too much. But I was wondering, what if you gave Bertuzzi for the cap so you can still have cap space for a defenseman, and then Robertson and Minton? Would you do that? Yeah.
For a half, for like a playoff front,
with
one
like
playoff
no
run of Gensel,
with an agreement that you're re-signing him.
How are you going to put Gensel into this? Like that's 5 guys that like Gensel's going to make almost 10 mil. It's not going to happen, CP. That's what I think.
Yeah.
It's not logistical.
Yeah, where's the money come from?
And it sounds great. Like on NHL 24, I might go and try it, but like it's not going to work. It's not going to work, man. Like there's only so much money to go around, and like you do need to fill in those other spots because as we sit here and complain, you can't have that big of a drop off between lines. You cannot. Like we pay $8 million to Max Domi, $8.5 million to Max Domi and Tyler Bertuzzi, right? So
I mean,
you
he's
pay that
adding to the depth.
You pay that
though.
to Jake Gensel, and next year we can't have that. Okay, so now it's the top 6 or bust. Now we're talking about
for sure.
stars that don't show up when it's needed. The big moments, they aren't the Colorado Avalanche, they aren't the Tampa Bay Lightning, they aren't the Cup winners of the past, the Vegas Golden Knights and whatever have you. They aren't those guys, man. Like we've seen it time and time again. And we're gonna put our chips, our money into this pot where we're going to say, yeah, we'll add one more top 6. One more top 6 is going to be the thing that makes all these guys go, and we can just sacrifice our bottom 6 and fuck it. I don't think that's logistical. I think you need a better defensive bottom 6, and I think last year and the years prior, the Leafs have had a better defensive bottom 6, and that's why we haven't worried so much. This year, we see what it's like when they shifted to offense because of what happened in the playoffs, and now we're seeing what it's like in the regular season. The defense looks like shit, but that's why I say we have to hang on to these guys and hopefully squeak into the playoffs.
Yeah, but we can't just hold on to guys. Like, the thing is that 9 or 10 million isn't non-doable for the Leafs. Like, if you look at their cap space for next year, like, you have like over $20 million in space, and like there's some shuffling that has to be done. But like, remember when I did the like, you signed Matt Nylander for 11 million, and like in my fake thing, I gave Montour like $9.5 million, right? And like, just for fun, just to say like, look, you can fit in like a really good defenseman. And like, and now we don't have Klingberg, and there's actually, cap isn't like as big of a deal for this team unless you have to go out and spend a lot of it on goaltending. And like, that would be the one caveat, is like, that's with spending very little on goaltending, hoping that Wall works out. But that's the kind of my thought on that, is it's like, it's not all about the cap space at this point, because you can do it. It's feasible. It's just, do you want to give up a bunch of stuff for that? And so you just don't think, like, a left winger is what we're missing at this point. It's just, you want a crappier one in a third line and not to give up as much. And you think Domi would be the solution then.
Okay, so let me ask you tonight. So
or a Knies, I guess.
We played the Vancouver Canucks tonight, right? The Toronto Maple Leafs played the Vancouver Canucks. Which line on the Toronto Maple Leafs do you think was better than the line on the Vancouver Canucks? Which one do you think is one player away from our dominance?
Well, I don't think this team is one player away. Like, multiple were better.
That's the thing. That's the thing, right? So, like, it's hard to just say, like, there's just this and just that and just this. And there's so much that we have to fill in here that...
but if we go and add $2-3 million players, I don't think that's making, like, because then we're moving out a bunch of guys.
We're talking about Jake Gensel, though, right? So you go and you add one Jake Gensel to this team, and then it does not fill the other holes on this roster, and it eats up most of the cap space, and there's just no room. There's just no room. You can't add another top player to this team. That's the end of it, man. Like, it's just.
So what's your cap ceiling on a player? Like, do you think that they have to go out and get a $3 million player, a
$6
$4 million,
6.
like a $6 million? Well, like, that's what he is.
Max.
Right. He's a $6 million player. He makes $6 million.
But if you're doing this deal to re-sign him again next year, like you said, then
so like a $3 million player you could re-sign next year for $6 million is what you mean.
Yeah. No. Or whatever. A $6 million guy who's worth $6 million next year. But the Jake Gensel thing isn't going to work. And that's why I said at the beginning of this conversation that Jake Gensel right now this year, do you want to pay the assets with the group that you have to add one Jake Gensel to this team and think that's going to push you over the cap or push you over the limit to beat like the top teams in the league, man? Like, you can't beat the Vancouver Canucks. You can't beat the Colorado Avalanche. Fuck, you can't beat the New York Islanders. You can't beat the Detroit Red Wings. You can't beat. It's been a tough week, okay? Do you think that one Jake Gensel is going to be good enough to push this team over the top with the amount of money that it's going to take to sign him next year and the amount of assets you're going to need to get rid of this year to acquire said one Jake Gensel? And it's going to be too much. It's too much. It's going to be too expensive. let alone the fact that the guy you have to buy it from used to run this team, so there's tax on that shit, man. I just don't think that Jake Gensel specifically is going to happen. And even if we say, okay, what about not Jake Gensel, but another Jake Gensel type, I don't think the money is there, and I don't think the risk is worth it there. Like, I think if you were Colorado Avalanche good, missing one second-line center, you would go and get a really good second-line center that you may or may not sign next year. But this team, this Leafs team, with who they have playing defense and who's in goal and how their forwards respond night in and night out, I just don't think that it's enough to warrant spending assets and potentially losing a Jake Gensel type in the offseason. So, no, I don't think that that's going to happen.
Right. Okay. But like, so the only thing is like, you're saying that like, we can't add a guy that makes $6 million, you know, like we have to pay him like $3 million after. So like, we got to trade, like, just like this comment says, then someone's got to be traded. Like, you got to get a Willie before the end of the season, because that's the only guy you can actually trade. Because otherwise, okay, let's just fold on the season then. That's what I'm hearing from you, is let's fold on it. The team's not good enough, so let's not go get out anyone. Let's hope that the guys we have are in the system are going to make this team better. And, like, at that point, like, I don't want to be a fan of this team. Like, look at what we've got. Like, this is a team that requires better than that. So, like, you can't laugh at me for saying Jake Gensel. He makes $6 million. Like, if you trade away Bertuzzi, you have to pay $500,000 more for a player that's worlds and worlds better. And so, like, it would then push guys down the lineup. And so the thing is, like, if you want to add two guys to this lineup, so then, like, you're taking out Bertuzzi anyway, because you're not taking out Knives. You know, you're not taking out Domi. So you're taking out Bertuzzi, or you're putting Bertuzzi on the fourth line, which I think would just be ridiculous to pay a guy over $5 million for that. So, like, you're losing $5.5 million anyway on a trade. We got to get Bertuzzi out. Anything that comes in, he's got to go out. But, like, I would accept it that it's not a left winger, but, like, for not being able to pay $7 million for this, then we got to do something bigger than that, because, like, you got to be able to pay someone $6 million. I know that he makes a bit more next year, but, like, Brody comes off at 5.5, and he's playing like a $2 million player. So, like, there's 3.5 right there that you can save, and there's their player. But, like, you need to do something significant. What does it cost you to get Jake
Gensel? What does it cost you to get him? And that's what I'm saying is, I'm not saying what do we want as fans. I'm not saying what's best for the absolute best shot for this team to win every year. I'm saying, as a general manager, sitting in Brad Treliving's shoes and evaluating the team the way that it is, does it make sense to pay whatever you're about to tell me for Jake Gensel and potentially not be able to afford to re-sign him next year because we need to fill in the rest of the team? And that is where I'm concerned that Brad won't go out and do this. As a fan, man, when I fucking play NHL 24, all my picks are gone in the first 3 years. Like, they're gone. I want everybody on my team. I got them all in the first 3 years. No first rounds, no second rounds are gone. I'm willing to trade the whole farm. Everybody. If you play now, you play now. I don't give a shit about later. We're winning now. That is not how the NHL operates. That is not how this front office is going to operate. So I'm asking you, as a fan, can you step aside and think Brad Treliving's shoes right now? Do you think this team is good enough to go and get one high-paid player to go and fix all of this? And I just don't think that he is going to buy into that thought. I don't think you're silly, CP. I think that is a move that's something that I would do if I was trying to fix this team. I think it's a very good idea. But I think if you have to weigh your reputation and your risk versus reward going into the future, as a GM, you have to understand that if it doesn't work this year, then you've just blown another shot. That's another cross. That's another X. And that's not good, right? And it's really hard to look at this group with everybody that they have right now and say they're one Jake Gensel away from winning a Stanley Cup.
No, that's silly. Like, the defense has to be way better. And, like, yes, you have to go and get a defenseman. But, like, we're not saying just get Jake Gensel. I'm just saying for a forward line. It's a lot of money, though. What else are you going to pay for Jake Gensel? What do you have left to get anything else after you buy Jake Gensel?
You said what, Timmins and you said Minton, did you
say? Oh,
say?
yeah, sorry. Like, okay, you have to give Bertuzzi, and then the money's offset, right? You give him Nate Robertson and either Fraser Minton or Easton Cowan.
Who?
And you think that does it? Nick
Fraser
Robertson.
Minton?
Yeah,
the defenseman.
Thank you.
What?
Yeah, the defenseman, Nate Robertson.
Yeah, I was like, what? You
That's
said
what you
Nate.
said.
You
Oh, I
mean
not say Nick?
Obviously. No,
No,
but yeah.
Anyways,
sorry.
Nick.
but yeah,
anyway,
no. So
sorry.
you think Nick Robertson, Fraser Minton, and Tyler Bertuzzi get you Jake Ensel?
I think
Because
like
in that
what
world,
is
I think that's great, but I think it's going to cost you more picks and prospects than that, especially trading with one Kyle Dubas.
yeah, like the only thing, it's probably not far off if it's for anyone like dealing with any other GM. I don't know. Like the thing is you might get like Kyle Dubas loved Nick Robertson. So I think that's just one where you're going to get a bit more for him for trading him to Dubas. But and Fraser Minton's played NHL games, and he's way before he was supposed to, and he's probably looked at as a first-round draft pick. And so
it's a stretch.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's first-round draft picks on their own aren't worth as much as a guy who's drafted in the late first round or the second round who's playing like it, because there's a lot of misses as first-round draft picks. And Kyle Dubas isn't exactly in a position to be just taking picks. Like he wants players. Like you can't just say like he wants 3 picks and this and that. Like this guy wants players. He's got Sidney Crosby, and his window is way shorter than the Leafs are. So if Jake Ensel is going out, he has to do it. So I can't see it going more than like a couple first-round draft picks worth. So like maybe you have to add a third and a fourth, or we don't have thirds though, but you don't want to give away too many picks. But I think there's some players in the system that he might want and see as steals that other GMs probably don't even look at twice. But I'm not in love with Jake Ensel. It's just you need to add something impactful here, because it is missing something. I would argue that I'm wrong, that it should be a centerman. And I would have that would have been totally. I would have said, yeah, you're right. But I just feel like it needs to be impactful, because just like a couple players that are just guys that are journeyman type players, that's not necessarily going to cut it. I don't think there's an identity that's missing, and if you could add something of significance, but I'm not sold that it's not that there's a flaw just in this team in general. That it's hard not to see it as that way, because
there is.
it's. Yeah,
there is. So do you have anything else on this game here tonight, CP?
No, I don't think so. I'm open for much better for tomorrow, but we'll see.
Yeah, so we got another game tomorrow. The Leafs lose tonight 6-4 to the Vancouver Canucks, who proved to be the superior and much more dominant team. They looked it, they felt it. We've seen lots of problems with this Toronto Maple Leafs team for weeks, and we will be back tomorrow with the Detroit Red Wings, or with the Seattle Kraken, sorry.
Yeah.
We're heading to Seattle to finish their 4-game Western road trip tomorrow at 9 p.m. So we have a big day tomorrow.
Sheldon Keefe's last game.
The game's at 9? God, tomorrow's going to be a long day.
It's going to be a long day, boys.
Let's
we have
go.
a big day.
Yeah.
So tomorrow we're going to check out the Steve Dangle podcast live here in Kingston, because of course we make podcasts, but we are fans of podcasts. We love hockey and hockey podcasts and everything that has to do with hockey. So we will be doing that tomorrow, and then coming back to watch the Leafs take on the Kraken in the Kraken's home arena at 9 p.m. before they host the Winnipeg Jets on Wednesday at home. And as always, after that game, post-game, we will be here to chat with you. For now, it's a wrap. Thank you for listening. Thank you for commenting, mostly John. Hit that like button,
Johns.
subscribe
John and Jordan.
on YouTube, and
Jordan,
rate
yeah.
us 5 stars anywhere else. Find us on X at STDP Hockey and search for Split the Defense with an S, because we're weird, on all other socials. And until next time, peace.
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 You've been listening to
Split the Defense.
Leafs Post-Game Edition. Hosted by Jordan Webster, Craig Pearce, and producer Ted Evans.
Split the Defense.
Is presented by LaForest Electrical Contractors. Professional and efficient service since 2004. Serving the Kingston and surrounding areas.